Part 1. How Will I See Scripture? Chapter 1. Scripture is God's Plan. Scripture is God's plan. Scripture is God's plan toward one era to another. Through humans and from era to era, God fulfilled the plan of 6,000 years. From Genesis to Revelation, Scripture is God's plan fulfilled by Him on this land. If Scripture is looked at with human eyes, it is difficult. However, if the eyes of God open and we receive the Spirit's stir, it is not something that is difficult. The 66 books of Scripture is God's self. However, many people try to obtain blessings from word that can be seen. When it comes to words of blessing, they are all for me. But when it comes to words of reproach, I throw them away as if they were for someone else. Human beings throw away words they do not like. However, from God's point of view, there is not one thing about Scripture to throw away. God picks up all the things we throw away, and He continues to fulfill His plan. By doing so, God's perfection appeared, and His glory became revealed. All things that God made are good. If we receive all things by giving thanks, there is nothing to throw away. This refers to parts of God's plan. When God said to Abraham, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you," Genesis 12:1, it could not have become God's glory if he did not obey. Largely, Scripture is God's plan of 6,000 years. But in smaller ways, there are also plans that He desires from individuals, and such is God's Scripture towards me. Now, I must look at Scripture with the spiritual eyes of God. If I look at God through human eyes, it becomes my man-made Scripture. If God's Scripture is to come out, I must correctly see God's plan toward this era and the plan toward myself. Yet people are mostly looking at Scripture with human eyes. That is why the perfect things of God do not come out. The person who receives the stir of the divine realizes by saying, "So this was what the word had meant." Now, Scripture must be looked at again. Scripture is not for the accumulation of knowledge in our heads, but is God entering our spirits. It is to know God's plan of this era towards me, and it is to fulfill such a will. If God, who is inside Scripture, does not enter me, I am a person who has nothing to do with God. God, who fulfilled things in Scripture, must enter me and become revealed. He must fulfill Scripture in me. I must see the God who moves from inside myself. Why are the following names stated in this way? The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? God fulfilled His plan through Abraham, which carried over to Isaac. He also fulfilled His plan through Isaac, which carried over to Jacob. In this way, God fulfilled His plan through human beings from one era to another. But until when will we remain with the things of Scripture that can be seen in the flesh? Until when will we remain with people in Scripture who can be seen in the flesh? God must enter me, and through me, His plan must appear. If God's plan has come to me, I must fulfill His will in order for it to be Scripture. Through Scripture, the end of all the days of evil's life. Scripture has a beginning and an end. Such beginning starts from Eden. If there is a beginning, there is an end. This end does not refer to the end of God, but refers to the end of evil. Through Scripture, disobedience ends. Evil ends. This is God's eternal era of his love. The end of all the days of evil's life must come for eternal peace to enter us. The end of all the days of my life must come for an eternal world to be here. Only the Word is an eternal world. If the Word is to stand perfectly, there must be an end to the evil inside me. If there were no disobedience, why would we need Scripture? Scripture was given so that disobedience could be driven out from inside us. With the living Word, other gods, 666, and the Antichrist must be driven out from inside myself. Other gods must be demolished and God's kingdom must become expanded. Now, the King of Heaven comes to the land of the other. If there is even one God that remains, it continues to spread. And so, from the beginning, it must be blocked. A perfect heaven must expand. Scripture was given so that we can strike the evil inside us. We must drive this out with the living Word. The victory of God is to bring the evil inside myself to an end. Now, disobedience must be gone, and first love with God, which is Eden, must be found. To throw away disobedience in me and find obedience is first love. There must be obedience to restore Eden. In order to obey, God's covenant must enter me. The word of the covenant must enter.